This is the DJI Mini 2. And at this point, what has and hasn't been said about this drone or quadcopter has pretty much been said by its, 10 billion owners out there. But this is my first professional drone, and this is a video review of not just a first-time owner, moi, but also a DJI customer. Prior to this purchase, I cross-shopped between Xiaomi's very impressive Fimi X8 2020 and also the pretty sweet Parrot Anafi with its upward-firing camera ability. But ultimately, I settled on the Mini 2. So why did I choose this over the rest? And months later, do I have buyer's remorse and think this is like a glorified toy that was a waste of money? Or do I think this is like the best drone purchase of all time? If you're curious, let's find out after these messages. So I just realized it's been months since we've done any kind of outdoor close-up segments like this one. It's a nice change of pace from the studio and the weather is warming up, so why not, right? Let's talk about specs first. This thing is priced at $450 just for the Mini 2 alone. If you fork up $590, you get the Fly More kit, which is really what you see on the left here for the most part. You get 2 extra batteries and a charger, a multi-charger, and this thing alone with the batteries is worth the entry price of the Fly More kit in my opinion. This really adds to the flight experience overall over the one single battery that comes with this thing. You also get a water resistant carry bag and some other accessories, which we'll look at in a second. But I want to point out that this thing is tiny, I'll tell you what, at 13 centimeters by 6 by 8, I think. This thing is really small. When you compare this with my Pixel 2 XL, this thing, look at that, it's smaller than even my phone, so it's pretty darn impressive. But to some of you out there, it might seem like you're not getting much to match that hefty entry price, and I get that. But in my opinion, the Mini 2 is the epitome of purposeful miniaturization, and why I say that is, for example, the weight is rated at 249 grams, therefore keeping it under the FAA registration fee requirements, which is 250 grams and above. You have to pay $5 for 3 years. It's only $5 at the end of the day, but it's a nice little plus. Now, that being said, on my scales, this thing is weighed at 238 grams, which is really pretty much the norm. Some other folks have weighed it, and it comes out around the same with the battery on board. And I also have an ND filter. And if you're careful with the accessories, you can definitely keep it under the 250 gram threshold. And also the low weight plus a more efficient battery and motors give you a marketed flight time of 31 minutes, which is really impressive for something this small. Actual flight time, though, is more like 25 before that incessant low battery warning beep beckons, every time beckons me to bring it back as quick as possible. There's also level 5 wind resistance, which means it will fly in winds up to 24 miles an hour, which in of itself is pretty impressive. But I've seen Sean Oz and DC Rainmaker make this fly from 31 to 55 miles an hour wind, and it still flew. Not stably, and return to home becomes disabled, but it impressively stayed up. Now, what's not available on the Mini 2 that the more expensive models have is all-round object detection sensors, so you don't crash into stuff. This does, right here, have downward vision sensors that aid with hovering and landing and maintaining itself in place, especially when you're flying indoors. Now, the DJI also does have return to home, so when you combine this with its really robust GPS and you have a good lock, return to home is really one of its best features. And it has a good amount of also built-in flight and pre-flight safety settings at your disposal. There's also a 12 megapixel f2.8 CMOS camera, and let me take off the cover here so you can better see it. And it's stabilized on a 3-axis gimbal, one of the best in the business really. But the sensor is kind of small. It's like a cell phone really, 1 inch over 2.3, 1 over 2.3 inch, and it's like the same sensor size as the Mavic Pro and the OG Mavic Mini. But it's stabilized on this gimbal and it's really effective. We'll talk about the camera quality and show you some samples and features later on in the show. Now, this new remote differs from the old one in a few important ways. It runs AccuSys 2.0 as we mentioned earlier, which means longer range and stable connection between you and the Mini 2. The antenna is right here at the top, so make sure you point it in the right orientation, at the right angle, as defined by DJI, and you get maximum performance. Now, this is still Wi-Fi, let's get that straight, like the OG Mavic Mini, but now the remote can cycle between 2 frequencies, 2.4 and 5.8 gigahertz to keep the signal as strong as possible. Now, another difference is your connected device is mounted at the top as opposed to below like before. I like this location more. It's kind of like a heads-up display. The remote also comes with a larger internal battery pack, which kind of explains why this thing is much larger than the Mini 2 itself. That means you can use this for a long time on the field and also charge your device at the same time if you want to. And speaking of which, the connectors are interchangeable. So if you have an iPhone with Thunderbolt, you can swap this out. This is a USB-C one, so you can swap this out too in case you have something else. Venting port is right here. This arm is extendable up to a certain size. I think even your iPhone 12 can fit in here with a case, but not tablets. They do have attachments for that you can buy accessories to add tablets to it. The thumb wheel to control the gimbal is right here to pivot up and down. And here is the shutter button for the camera slash video as well. Now, over at the front here, there are a couple of buttons that I really like. This is to switch camera modes, and this is a function button that you can quickly cycle your camera to point straight up or point straight down. In the Android, it's non-customizable, at least as of now, but iPhone users get to customize this a couple of ways, I guess. And between these two quick buttons, we have the obvious, the joysticks. And these things are customizable in the app itself, what it does, what they do, and also you can switch orientation depending if you're left brain, right brain, or whatever. And down below that, we have two very useful buttons next to the power button. Here is where you can switch between flight speeds, cinema mode, normal mode, as well as sport. Sport is the fastest. Normal is what is preset. Cine, if you want, like slow cinematic movements of your quadcopter, or if you're just learning to fly, I say switch to this one. Here's a really useful button. You can press this or hold it down to turn on a return to home, and also you can press it once to just pause it in mid-air. Whatever it's doing, if you tap this, it will pause it like an emergency stop. And here is the battery level LED. And down below we have the USB-C charging port and storage compartments for your joystick toggle switches right here. They're really nice if you want to pack this down compactly. Now let's take a closer look at the Mini 2. And I'll tell you what, DJI knows how to build even their cheapest quadcopter well. This thing has good quality plastics. The manufacturing lines are nice and tight. A little bit hollow in the plastics at the top here towards the back of the battery compartment. But everything else is solid. The quality of the plastics is really, really strong. I've crashed this a couple of times learning to fly it in the beginning, close to the ground, crashed against my house when the wind blew it too close to it. And the legs would, barely took a beating. There's just mud stuck in it, but that's about it. The place that got hit the most are the propellers, but these are the expendable stuff. So this thing is really, really well built. When you want to use it, you flip out the arms and you can hear the springs, how strong they are. They just pop into place, really reassuring feeling. Now up front here is an LED light that I'm not sure why it's there. You can change the color of it, and it's not super bright at all, even for night flying, so I'm not sure. I think it's more of aesthetics. And right here is just mesh grills that are not sensors. It would have been nice if they were sensors. Over at the back of the Mini 2, you find the USB-C charging port right next to the micro SD card slot. And right up here, you guessed it, is the battery compartment. You just have to pop open the door, press the tab on the battery, slide the old one out, and pop the new one back in. This thing takes up most of the weight of the entire unit itself, but once you have a new fresh battery, pop it back in. And if you want to power it on or check the battery level for that matter, just tap this once and you get the battery level. But if you want to power it on, tap it once and then hold again. And then you see the boot up sequence where the propellers twitch and then the gimbal starts to calibrate itself. Here is the status light too. It will blink different colors depending on the status, if it's trying to get GPS lock, sync with your phone or whatever it is. It's really visible at night. I really like this, and I wish the front LED was the same, just as visible, so you didn't have to buy accessory lights to keep it visible at night. Now this also serves the second function. If you tap and hold this, it will do a little sync. You'll create this really loud noise, and then it will sync with your phone to do quick transfers. So if you have big files, you can transfer up to 20 megabytes per second files with this quick sync. Really, really nice feature when you're doing this on the fly without a laptop or something like that. Now, there are a lot of venting ports all around, so make sure you don't fly this or land this or take off from really dusty areas or sandy areas. And also, of course, be mindful of water. Now, here are all the, as we said earlier, the downward looking sensors for landing and hovering and such. And here is the much vaunted 3-axis gimbal, and we'll look at how this thing performs later on. So here's what I'm gonna do. I'm going to do a light-handed look at the DJI Fly app this time, mostly because there's so much to cover here. So it's going to be a surface level look and maybe a second or third video to look at the deeper settings and parameters and the features and such. But here's the home screen, and make sure, by the way, to connect your phone and the remote first, power these on. Once these are paired, then turn on the quadcopter and then pair it that way, because that's just safety 101. And once the quadcopter is locked on with your remote, you see the Go Fly button become active, and you can tap that anytime. On the bottom left here are some icons. We'll check that out in a second. I want to revisit some of these. Now, the Go Fly button, you tap that, and here is what the camera sees. So The interface itself is decent if you know how to get around your phone camera app, for example. Like on the right here, switching between camera and photo, video and photo, or changing resolutions, or accessing your panorama mode and such like that. And also down here, you can also access your manual controls. If you're used to doing this, then the Fly app would be pretty close to home. But to be honest, the most important things you have and need to know are really the safety functions and features, pre-flight, post-flight, what happens during emergencies, and it'll usually show on the top left here, either in a red message or orange if it's just something, a warning or such. And so I'm going to show a clip right here where I live really close to an airport and I'm trying to fly, but it requests me to get an authorization first. So I have to check some boxes to acknowledge that I understand the rules. And here where I fly, I think it has a 250 feet altitude zone. And then once you get further out there, it is a no-fly zone at all. So one thing cool about the app and the quadcopter itself is based on GPS, it will understand if I hit 251, for example, it will say, nope, you can't do that. So basically like you're hitting a wall. So that's really nice that it's built in here. If I go back out to the home screen, I can see on the restricted zone here on the map, it will show me, it'll pull up what the flight path is for the airport and what are the zones are. So it's really convenient that you can check it out anytime. Let's go back to Go Fly. The other thing that's important to know and set is your return to home altitude. So you can access that in the settings here, and under safety, here's the auto RTH altitude right here, and I set it to 226 only because there are some trees and I live on a hill. So you want to make sure that it's set to the higher than the highest thing that's around your house or wherever you're flying. The quick shots, I want to show you that real quick, but in this case, I can't do it because I'm flying, but here's where you access it. You can do circling, droning, and things like that. On the top right here is the battery level, and right next to that is the remaining flight time, and next to that is the RC strength and the GPS signal strength. And the bottom left here, couple of matrices that are important too is speed as well as altitude. And if you tap the map icon, it brings up Google Maps. In this case, you can see your trajectory and all that kind of such. You can swap between the screens also if you prefer that. You can do that really quickly. On the left in the middle here is the takeoff button. Because this is on the ground right now, you can automatically hold this down and launch your quadcopter. You can also do this manually if you like. But once this is in flight, from a specific distance from your home spot, this will turn into return to home. So you can tap this, or you can use a remote too. Now, probably one of my favorite functions, if I wanted to take a deeper dive into any of my individual flights, is really back here at the home screen. Now, down here in profile, right where it shows hours and distance and flights, if I tap more, here you can see all kinds of flights that you've taken. It's just a historical data of everything you've done. And here, let me pull this one up, and it will play everything you did that day. Let me speed this up 8 times and zoom in a little bit. You can turn on the joystick, what the joysticks were doing. It's really fun to watch. You can turn on satellite mode as well. Here you can see that my quadcopter was doing a circle around an object, and here is really cool. You can check out your flight path. And I really like this. It's kind of like when you go on an exercise and it does a fitness track. This is its own version. By the way, there are 2 places where you can check out the pictures and videos that you captured. Here on the home screen with the album right here, or you can go back into Go Fly, and then down here in the play button under the record, you can access the same thing. Now on the top right here, this thunderbolt or lightning symbol is where you can access a quick transfer mode. So it will switch to your quadcopter for a faster transfer, like 20 megabytes per second. So that's really nice to have, as opposed to 5 megabytes per second. So if you want to quickly transfer your media, just do this, or you can just take out your SD card. That's probably the quickest. Here are my top favorite things about the Mini 2, and the first one of all is that this thing is so much fun to fly. It's such a flexible package. If you're a beginner, it's easy to pick up, learn the basics, get used to your local flight regulations, because what the drone does is it takes the stress out of the nuances of flight and allows you to learn the essentials and get used to them. And on the flip side though, if you're a more seasoned flyer, the stable platform gives you the opportunity to learn and master more advanced techniques if you really want to. And if you're a videographer or a camerographer, is that even a word? But you know what I mean. It allows you to get the shots that you want. For the second one, I have 3 words for it. Pack and go. Because for the sheer compactness and smallness of this unit along with the remote, it just gives you no excuse not to take it with you on any kind of trips or excursion. For example, if you've caught the travel bug and just want to slip in your luggage, this thing doesn't take up too much space or weight at all. And then once you're at your destination, just slip in your backpack or jacket pocket, make sure it's large, and well protect this. If you don't have the Fly More kit and its bag or a dedicated bag for this, make sure you protect this, the gimbal, the propellers, and just give it enough padding and you're good to go. The other thing about the lightness too, remember, this has 238 actual grams on the scale with everything included, the battery and everything. Gives you a lot of headroom to grow. So if you want to add accessories, as long as you're careful with the weight of the accessories, it gives you like the chance to install like ND filters like I have, or landing gear, or strobe lights for nighttime flying. Another thing that is super impressive is its breadth of capabilities and abilities, from the OcuSync 2.0 that now allows you to fly further and more stably than ever before, to no-fly zone protection and other safety features, to wind resistance and flight time, and also to the camera. This thing, don't forget, it's a cell phone sensor, 12 megapixel, but it performs way better than the specs suggest. And my last 2 positives is related to why I ended up with the DJI and not the other brands at the end of the day, and this might be important to you. First one is if you want accessibility to gear and also third-party accessories, it's DJI for the win. Because if you go on Amazon, on eBay, if you're looking for DJI Mini 2 stuff, it's there. From all kinds of price ranges and availability, it's there. If I had gone with this Xiaomi, for example, and I was looking for spare parts, I might have to consider 3D printing it or shipping it from some far-off warehouse, which would have been super inconvenient. The other plus too is just what happens after the fact of the purchase. Customer support, tech support, warranty, update cycle. And the other thing that the DJI just beats the other brands is the strength of their forums. If you want to connect with people, tap their knowledge base, and also find out DIYs and FAQs and such, DJI forums are just so abundant. Now let's talk about the negatives, and there aren't that many, by the way. So when the Mini 2 first came out, people started noticing and complaining that there's no auto track or follow me feature, which would have been super nice. But some people rationalized, and probably DJI too, that yes, we can track things from afar in quick shots, for example, but because there's no object avoidance sensors built in, it's a safety liability. But I just wish DJI would chillax and just let us have it, because like Xiaomi's brand new X8 Mini has the follow me feature without all the prerequisite sensors that they're talking about. So that would have been super nice if they included it in the first place. So my hope is that DJI opens up the software to open source, and third parties like Litchi can just pick it up and run with it and give us this feature. So a few minutes ago, I mentioned that the camera performs and produces results way better than the spec suggests. But at the end of the day, I wish they had given us a better sensor, larger megapixels, just something more future-proof rather than just recycling something from the first gen. Now my last negative is a little bit more subjective, which is value for money. I find this a little bit too high. And some of you may argue, hold on Aaron, $450 for this kind of tech, that's a really good proposition. But to that I counter, this kind of technology from late 2020 to early 2021 should be cresting under $400 at this point, $399 and below. That would have made it a super awesome proposition for more folks, because right now I think you're just paying for the brand. In fact, Xiaomi's brand new FIMI Mini, which roughly has the same features, runs for $320. So DJI, it's doable. So maybe with the version 3.0 they might be able to do that. I can only wish. So I think after doing this video, it warrants me to do a second one so that we can look more in-depthly at all the features and capabilities of this honestly impressive quadcopter. If you'd like to see it, comment down below and let me know. But in short, I love flying this thing. It's such a joy to take it out each time, and I find it a very stable and forgiving platform, especially for beginners, as long as you know yours and its limits. And now that I'm getting more experience, and I mean this also for intermediate flyers, now that I'm getting more experience, I find its robust operational envelope wide enough for me to, safely learn new lines of how to fly it, and also, get better videos and pictures each time I take it out. It's super awesome. So I definitely recommend the Mini 2. You should check it out if you're wanting to get something brand new, but don't want to invest in something too expensive, this is a great platform to start with. If you're moving up from a simpler quad, this is a great upgrade. Or if you like to travel a lot, this package and smallness of it just makes it perfect if you like to take it somewhere, go camping or hiking or whatever, and explore things from the sky, takes lots of pictures and videos. This is perfect. And have I said how much fun this thing is to fly? Oh yes it is. And so I want to give the DJI Mini 2 or Dajian Industries Mini 2 a gear up score of 8.5 out of 10. And this is how I broke it down to get to the final score. Feel free to pause it. And if you have any questions about it, feel free to comment down below. Well, there you have it. Thank you so much for joining me today, and please come back next Friday. We're going to be looking at the Soundpeats T2 earbuds. It's going to be awesome. And if you haven't already, please consider subscribing to this channel, because if you like to see more videos like this, bigger production, more comparisons, just mash and kill the button down below. Tell your friends and family about it. I'm trying to get to 10,000 subs too, 50,000, 100, you know how it works. So if you like to see my stuff grow, my channel grow, just press the button down below, turn on the bell notification. Thank you in advance for your help. And if you're financially able to visit my Patreon page down here where you can buy me a cup of coffee or tea or something. And you can do the same with the brand new YouTube applaud button down here right next to the video description. And also remember to thumbs up if you like this video, super important stuff, and comment nicely down below. And thumbs down. Thumbs down. This is a continuation of last week's thumbs down segment, because last week I talked about one of our hidden Easter eggs went missing. In its place, in its hiding spot, we found a chipmunk, and I blamed it on the chipmunk. Well, it turns out that more eggs were unaccounted for, and we went hunting for them. Not a single trace in the yard anywhere. No wrappers, no empty eggshells, not even a rolled away egg by the wind or down the street or anything. Nothing. So I think there's some kind of chipmunk conspiracy going on, that Mr. and Mrs. and the kids are all involved in this cartel that steals eggs, and they're having this kind of candy party down in their den. And I think it's going to happen next year. So I'm asking your help, guys. Comment below and tell me how this is going to be solved. I don't want to kill them, but maybe electrified eggs, camera eggs, I don't know. But what do you think? So with that said, thank you so much for watching, guys. Please come back next week. I miss you, but remember to do something nice and kind and loving for somebody in this world, because the world needs it more than ever, and it starts with you. So anyways, God bless, peace out, I love y'all. Whoosh.